call this meeting of the Select Board to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have a couple of announcements. Grafton's Community Emergency Response Team, commonly known as CERTS, will be hosting a series of courses for those interested in joining the team. The second class will be held on July 13th at 7 o'clock at the Grafton Police Station. For more information, visit our website at www.grafton-ma.gov or contact Director Kathy Cedarberg at 508-826-0740. The Grafton Select Board is looking for interested individuals to serve on the following boards and committees: the Cable TV Oversight Committee, Council on Aging, Cultural Council, Disability Commission, Economic Development Commission, the Historic District Commission, the Historical Commission, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. If you are interested in serving on a board or committee, you may apply via email to the TA office at grafton-ma.gov or by using the online portal, or by sending a letter of interest to the Select Board at the Grafton Municipal Center, 30 Providence Road, Grafton, Mass. 01519, before July 26, 2022. Library Director Beth Schreiber was recently named the Library Advocate of the Year for 2022 by the Mass Library Association Paralibrarian Section. On behalf of the Select Board, we congratulate her for this accomplishment. All right, we have no public hearing tonight, and we have an appointment for Council on Aging. I'll take a motion.
All right. I move the board vote to reappoint William Cutler to the Council on Aging.
Is
Second.
William here?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, I
on,
think so.
on Zoom? William, would you like to come up and introduce yourself? Sorry. Hi, William.
Hi.
If you'd like to have a seat and
Oh, sure.
just say hi, or we
Oh,
could.
sure.
We dragged you out here, so tell us why you like being on the Council on Aging.
Excuse me? I'm bad hearing.
Okay, tell us why you like being on the Council of Aging.
Why? I enjoy dealing with elder services. I retired from home care system after spending 30 years in it. I ran Meals on Wheels, plus I oversaw a lot of case management. I served on other boards while I was in that function, and it was a way of giving back to the people. After being paid for a job, now I'm giving back.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, thank you. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, just wondering how long you've been on.
I've been on since 2002.
All right.
Wow.
Well, thanks for your continued service.
All right. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Declare the motion carried. Congratulations and thank you.
Very much.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Robert Collette, Board of Cemetery Commissioners.
Good evening. How you doing?
Good. How are
Good.
you?
Not bad. I was recently retired from the police department, as you all know, after doing almost 37 years. I've been a cemetery commissioner 25? I don't know. You can tell me. I don't even know.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just gonna nod. No one's gonna check. You're good. 25 years.
So I'd just like to continue and serve the community in that capacity. And, all right.
Yeah,
Very nice.
if you don't remember, no one else will.
I don't. It was maybe even 28. Something
Oh,
like
wow.
that. Yeah, it's been many years. So,
Well, thank you.
there.
Any other questions? All right. Hearing none. I'll take a motion.
I move the board vote to reappoint Robert Collette to the Board of Cemetery Commissioners.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion carried. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All
Have
right.
a good evening.
You too.
You too.
And then the planning board has picked a representative for the EDC. I don't have that name right in front of me.
Prabhu.
Prabhu.
Pra- Oh, Prabhu. And is Prabhu on Zoom? Probably not.
No.
Okay. So I can just take a motion for that.
Sure. I move the board vote to affirm Prabhu Balaji Venkatraman to the planning board, as the planning board representative on the Economic Development Commission.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion carried. Congratulations. All right. And the town administrator has a few appointments on as well.
Yep. Thank you. Sorry. Someone emailing me from the from the Zoom meeting,
Oh,
making sure that they're on. So we are going to pass over the appointment for the Council on Aging Director, only because the candidate is planning on attending on the 12th.
Cool.
So I figured we'll just do it all in one shot. We decided to go with, her name is Shannon Smith. She has a doctorate in physical therapy and a bachelor's in nutrition and food services. She's also geriatric certified specialist and has a whole bunch of other letters for the senior population. So really excited, interviewed really well, and you'll get to meet her at the next meeting.
Nice.
Great.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I'm also looking for you to appoint Deborah, or confirm Deborah Jackson Moore as the department assistant at the Grafton Public Library.
okay. I can take a motion.
I move the board vote to affirm the appointment of Deborah Jackson Moore as department assistant at the Grafton Public Library.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion carried.
Great, so then I would like you to affirm the appointment of Eric Lindstrom, who is a reference librarian at the Grafton Public Library.
I can take a motion.
I move the board vote to affirm the appointment of Eric Lindstrom as a reference librarian at the Grafton Public Library.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion carried.
And I believe lastly, I'd ask that the board affirms the appointment of Matthew Buckley as the HR benefits coordinator.
Second.
It sneaks up.
Trigger happy.
I move the board vote to affirm the appointment of Matthew Buckley as HR benefit coordinator.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none. Declare the motion carried.
Sorry, I do have more.
Excellent.
It's on a separate page. So now we're on to the Grafton Police Department. I would ask that you affirm the appointments of Gregory R. Palmer, Brendan M. Liver, and Daniel Simler to the position of permanent full-time police officer.
I move the board vote to affirm the appointment of Gregory R. Palmer, Brendan M. Liver, and Daniel J. Simler as permanent full-time police officers.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion carried.
Great, and I believe it is our intent that all three of those officers will come and meet the board on the 19th.
Okay.
Excellent.
So first up on the agenda is the IAGB Independence Day. Valshali Gade. Are they on Zoom?
They with us on Zoom.
Wonderful.
Where do we go?
Oh, I hate when it does that.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome.
Hi. For taking this item on the agenda today. This is Vishali Gade. I'm the president of IAGB. And first of all, I like to, express my immense gratitude for allowing the flag to be flown at the Grafton Municipal Common last year. And we come back this year with the similar request. Whether we are looking at, actually we have 2 to 3 dates to choose from, whichever one works for the Grafton city, 6th or 7th of August or 20th of August. This is, we are just happy that, though we are immigrants and we have adopted this US as our land, this land is allowing us to recognize the country that we come from, and it is accommodating and as well as, culturally diverse, recognizing the cultural diversity, as well as allowing people to, pay the respects that they want to pay at the city common. Thus, we are requesting to raise the flag at the city common on August 6th, 7th, or August 20th in the morning, whichever day works best for the city.
All right. Thank you so much. Does the board have any questions?
Just a comment, I guess. I attended this, I think a couple of years ago.
I think
The last time they had it, maybe it was last year. But the time's going by crazy, and COVID and post-COVID. It's a really great celebration. I wasn't aware, but we've got over 350 Indian families in town. It's a very fast-growing population in Grafton, and it's an important culture to recognize. So I'm in full support of it.
So, I want to echo what Matt's saying. I agree. I attended in 2020 when you guys did it for the first time. But with the COVID restrictions being lifted for the last, couple years, it was a smaller celebration. What are your plans for this year? Is it going to look similar to the last 2 years, or is this something that you're trying to have more people attend? I'm just trying to think of size and what you're envisioning for this year.
Right. So with the COVID limitations lifted, we are definitely looking to increase the size. And because of the population presence in Grafton, I'm going to request that Grafton, that is what we have done across the other many towns. But the idea is Grafton be the anchor town. And there are small pockets of other Indian American population around the Grafton. We'll be inviting that population to come and join this celebration in Grafton, expecting about 60 to 70 people attendees to attend that session, and we'll follow it with a small celebration with the national anthem, US national anthem, Indian national anthem, and maybe a small cultural celebration that will also become part of this. In no event the event should go beyond 1 hour 15 minutes.
Okay. Do we need to check with Chief Crapo for parking, or do we have enough parking to accommodate
We would have
all
enough
that?
parking up here.
Yeah, sure.
independently.
Okay, so we can just
Yep, and I don't see a conflict with either day.
perfect.
So it's really either the discretion of the applicant or the board.
Do you have a preferred day out of those 3 dates?
August 20th, 9 a.m. would be preferred day.
Okay. Does the board have any other questions?
And you're intending to use the flagpole in front of the senior center like you did in years past, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just double check.
Okay. All right, do you need anything else from us, or you guys will provide the audio and everything you've done in the past as well?
Yes, I believe City has helped with the audio, but if not, I could be mistaken. I'll check on that.
So what we needed was just electrical for the microphone.
Okay.
Yes,
And
and
speakers.
we'll bring a portable speaker or something.
So we had to fish around for an actual extension cable. So if we could just have that ready to go out, and basically they presented from where the flag is. So if we could have electrical out there, provided to go out there, that
Yep,
would be
yep.
great.
Okay.
All right. Well, it sounds like we have it all pretty figured out. If anyone wants to make a motion for August 20th at 9 a.m.
What are we exactly moving?
I think to accept or to allow the IAGB to have their flag ceremony on August 20th at 9 a.m. at the Grafton Municipal Center.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion carried. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Next up is the Boston Post Cane Award. The town clerk resurrected this award, and we had presented it to the oldest citizen in Grafton last week. And I think, well, you might have a
Yep.
picture or two of that.
We do.
Awesome. So we went down to his house, and it was lovely meeting him. He's lived here since he was 9 years old. He graduated high school in 1939, and it was incredible just to hear some of what he's seen in his lifetime just living here in Grafton. And I really like, and I'm really excited that the town clerk brought this back because it's a pretty cool thing. So congratulations, Mr. Kilkin. Yep. I don't know what else to.
No, that was good.
Yeah.
It's
And
neat. It's a neat thing.
It is a
Good thing
neat
for the
thing.
community too, I think.
And then up next is the intermunicipal agreement for the animal control and animal inspection services.
Yep, so this is a request to approve the extension of the existing agreement. It'll be from July 1, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. Everything is status quo, everything's already covered in the budget, and operations will not be changing. So,
Okay, any questions? Nope.
Okay. I move the board vote to approve the extension of the intermunicipal agreement animal control / animal inspector services between the towns of Grafton, Westboro, and Shrewsbury from July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, declare the motion carried. I will say that we did pass over 4B. It's coming back on the 12th per person's request, so it's just those following along at home. And then up next, we have posting of agenda and minutes. I think Anne Marie would like to speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. I've talked to Evan about this a couple of times, but just in going through the town minutes primarily, not really agendas per se, we just have a lot of committees and boards that are not posting their minutes in a timely manner. So when I went through it a little bit more today, to break it down, we have one committee where the last minutes posted were from June of 2019. We have one from November of 2020, and we have 6 that are from 1921, some time in there. Some boards are actually completely up to date, or, relative to, like, say, the last 2 meetings, give or take. That's what I would call up to date, I suppose. And some boards don't meet but once a month, so I, took that into consideration in terms of this year, fiscal year 22, in that there are some boards that are, behind now as well. But the ones from a couple of years ago, I just wanted to bring it up to the board and just to kind of state it publicly that I don't think that, we can operate in that fashion in terms of transparency and whatnot. I'm looking at the agendas, and there's nothing to support, that it even happened. So just encourage anyone on various boards to try to get these up to date if they can. And I mean, personally, I can't imagine trying to go back, 2 years as serving on secretary on a number of different boards. It's handier if we can do them in a timely manner, even for the clerk or for whoever it is that's in charge of them, in my opinion. So I just wanted to bring it up into people's attention, your attention, as well as, the boards and the committees that are impacted.
I agree, and I think that's the beauty of having a lot of these recorded. GCTV is a huge resource, and I know not everybody loves the owl, and it doesn't always work in the best rooms. But the more meetings that we can record, it really helps as a safety net for when minutes aren't getting done, or if you need to go back 2-3 years to create those minutes.
True. Yep.
But as part of that, I did reach out to the town clerk because I know they send out at least one email a year trying to solicit minutes, and I guess they have been doing that multiple times a year to the boards and committees. But they got a lot to do. They can't really be policing that, I think is what the term they said. So, but it is good to remind everybody they need to get their minutes in.
I think we could be a little more forceful.
Yep.
In trying to procure the minutes.
Yeah, I think, Anne Marie, it's a really important point, and I'd like to see some action on some type of ongoing, if nothing else, I don't know, maybe twice yearly monitoring to just see who's a little behind, and just some gentle nudging would definitely be good.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, and I'll admit we have not gone through. Every time Anne Marie meets with me and tells me more, I just write them in my notebook so I can then follow up with the board or committee. But we haven't really been policing it out of our office either. So we're going to catch all of that with our website refresh, but that's so far down the road. It probably we're not going to wait till then. So we'll put something out in the next week or so. But we'll do it individual to each board, so that we have an exact date when the last time they posted, and what we're expecting to see.
That'd be great.
Can we flag it too, where these really overdue committees, whenever they try to post an agenda, it's kind of, they meet it right there, like, hey, by the way, you're still overdue here.
That's a question for the clerk,
Okay.
Because that doesn't come through my office at all.
But when they book a room, they do. Can't book a room if you're overdue.
Oh, that's true. Cindy will definitely block him from booking it.
And I think, at this point, especially with some of these, what I would say, not egregious, but, the ones that are a year or 2 or 3, actually, I think one, well, I'm not expecting it to be done. They can't book a room next month because of it. It's going to take a little time. I just think at least that we have a
It would
discussion.
be,
Not
What
to
are-
stop them,
Yeah.
but as a, hey, this
Right,
is, you're
right,
red
right.
flagged. Yeah.
Just to
Yeah.
maybe identify an expectation, as a board or amongst us, that perhaps depending, if they're only meeting once a month, maybe it's a 2 to 3 month lag. If we're meeting weekly, maybe it's a 1 month lag.
Yeah.
Something like along those lines in terms of what your expectation or what our expectation might be.
Okay.
Do we have a good list of committee chairs, board and committee chairs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll have. I don't think we're gonna have any difficulty reaching out to folks.
All right.
I think it was a matter of actually going page by page and looking at when the last time they've posted minutes. So I think we'll find some of these are probably written and never voted. Some of these are written, voted, and never sent to the clerk's office. There's probably a myriad of different reasons why.
Sure.
And then some just probably were never written that we're gonna have to backtrack into.
Yeah, it's difficult, especially boards and committees that have longer meetings. I just helped Dan Kusher on the Affordable Housing Trust to catch up on our meeting minutes, which weren't too out of date, but just going through a 3 or 4 hour meeting, trying to actually annotate that in a way where somebody reading the minutes could understand reasonably what the main topics of discussion were and who was, expressing different viewpoints. It's challenging for sure. It was lots and lots of hours of putting that together. So, some of the committees just don't meet very often.
Right.
So that's also a difficulty. Like the TRICOM, we met twice and I did the meeting minutes and everything, and then we didn't meet. Well,
Right.
We're probably not going to meet for another couple months. So.
Oh, no, we're gonna meet in August.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
And by the way, so those, I didn't really tag or flag some of those, because you can see based on the agendas, right, how often you're meeting. So it's really more the ones that are meeting more frequently.
We did have a few boards and committees without administrative assistance for a while too that normally would have picked up some of that. Just, in fairness, I think it's a very valid concern. But I know there's a backlog waiting for some of our new assistants to get through.
Yep, and we're so for select board, we're making pretty quick progress there.
Yep.
And I think the same thing will happen. We'll catch up on some of the. I think FinCom has a gap, but it's not. I think they're current.
They're not on my list.
No, they have a gap though between
okay.
a certain, so they're current here.
Gotcha.
And they're current over here, but there's a gap in the middle where the minutes aren't up to date that we need to correct. And I know Amber will be able to help with the Affordable Housing Trust to get that all wrapped up, and stay current on that. So that'll help too.
So we're good as of our last meeting, I believe. So we should be good. So, but if she can take that over going forward, that'd be awesome. So, I think the other thing that one of the reasons I asked about having that list of chairs and being able to reach out is just around the agendas piece. So that's been something that's kind of come up with some constituents in terms of just visibility of topics and making sure that we're clear
Yep.
with describing what is going to be discussed on the agenda. We're always going to have things that pop up kind of last minute, and so there's it's unfortunate, but things will be discussed that aren't necessarily if they can't reasonably be anticipated by the chair, then we may have some things that pop up, but anything that is being discussed should be reasonably well described in the actual agenda item so that people can understand if there's something of interest that they want to watch or participate in or view later on. So I think that's something that I would love to see emphasized to the chairs as well. So I don't know if we could just reach out to Candy on that while she's sending out other communications to just kind of emphasize that point because it's an important one.
Well, to go off of that, there's some agendas that say 48 hours reasonably anticipated items, and I do not like that catch-all. I think that if it's something that's going to be discussed, it should either be amended the agenda, because you can amend an agenda,
Yeah.
or just say, that's great, we'll put it on the next agenda. But I don't like that catch-all, because I do find when I watch the meetings, I find things that just weren't on the agenda, and it's, you might not have a meeting minute to get you there, or if they didn't record the meeting at all, then you wouldn't know at all, because that catch-all didn't
Yep.
describe it. So I would like to see agendas not use that anymore.
So
I
that
don't
sounds
know
like
how
a
everybody else
policy
feels
discussion.
about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so would we need to make an agenda policy?
Yeah. Probably.
Okay.
I would assume that there are towns throughout Massachusetts that have some kind of policy or basic, basic ways to do it, like the town of Norton, Massachusetts. I love Google. They have posting notice templates, agenda templates, in Word. They have open meeting law stuff. It's all really handy in one spot that I just found 15 seconds ago. But it looks really nice.
We should copy that.
We should.
It'd be good to have consistency.
Yep. I agree. And there's always going to be some variation because every board and committee operates a little differently.
Sure.
Yep.
But at least the basic building blocks are there. And even, part of our conversation, I know Anne Marie and I have talked about it, and a number of us have talked about, with Will, Cindy, and myself doing agendas and having a lot of experience doing agendas, we still have things that don't come through as clearly as they should because we know what they mean.
Right.
Not everybody else knows what they mean, or they assign an intent to something which we didn't have any intent to. It's just a sentence. So taking some of those lessons and putting them into what all the other boards and committees are doing, so they're not stepping in the same, puddle. I was going a different direction. Before I realized I was on
Good
TV.
catch.
So I think that would be helpful, and we can look more into it.
Okay, great. Thanks. Does anybody else have anything else to comment on that? Perfect. All right, moving on to the LIP proposal, continued discussion with Eastland. I see a number of them here tonight. I think what we're gonna do with this is just kind of go over what's expected of us at this point. I'm more geared for the 59 Pleasant Street LIP proposal. I don't know
So-
if there's a different order you want to take this in.
Nope.
Or...
I put together a presentation to basically help guide the board through the discussion about the both proposals together, and also Pleasant Street on its own, because we've already endorsed as a board the Upton Street development. And what we have before us now is the Pleasant Street development. So what I wanted to do is have a more thorough discussion, I think, on Pleasant Street, because we didn't really have a lot of resident concerns on Upton Street. We had a fairly brief conversation, and then we decided to endorse it. I did get some feedback that some felt that it wasn't as thorough a discussion as that they would have liked. So I just put together some slides to really walk through, kind of step by step, all the different facets of these two developments, focused mostly on Pleasant Street, to basically prep the board with kind of next steps, potential next steps, which is, you'll see, is the last slide, for how do we move forward with evaluating and potentially endorsing Pleasant Street. So that it kind of combines those two agenda items in the presentation. So Eastland is here to answer any questions that anybody has, just in case there are any questions on the numbers that are on the slides, that or anything else really in relationship to the development. I'll just walk the board through the slides. So essentially we're going through the municipal impact analysis, so that goes through the tax impact and the one-time revenues to Grafton. Some infrastructure improvements. We'll go through some affordability components. So that's the main feature, I think, of the kind of deal that we struck with Eastland was revolving around affordability and trying to actually move the dial with affordable housing in Grafton. So we're going to go through a couple slides on that. We'll talk through some of the differences between the LIP and the 40B. We'll talk through the extension of safe harbor. So that's an important topic that's kind of come up recently. So we'll discuss that. We'll look at density, the developer involvement. Obviously, LIPs are a more partnership-oriented approach to development. So, actually evaluating the developer and their willingness to partner with the town and communicate with residents and boards and committees and whatnot is important for us to understand as we evaluate the LIPs. We'll look at some of the site plans and updates that have happened from when they first started with the development team to now. I'd like to wrap up with just basically some considerations and concerns for the board to talk through. These are things that it's kind of an informal list, and if you guys have anything else that you want to discuss relative to Pleasant Street, I'd love to have people chime in on that. But these were the considerations and other things that I thought maybe weren't fully resolved in the board's view. Hopefully we'll address most of those throughout the presentation, but if there are any additional concerns, and as we think about our next steps of evaluating whether we're going to endorse this or not, that would be the opportunity to really have a full discussion about those continuing concerns and then talk about potential next steps. So that was a lot, but let's get into it. So the first thing just is mentioning the municipal impact analysis. So to me, this was kind of the benchmark of the type of analysis I'd like to see for any development that comes before us, certainly for any LIP that comes before us. So Eastland did a pretty good job, I think, in presenting to first the Affordable Housing Trust and then to the Select Board, taking a look at all of the different impacts to Grafton and our municipality. So they looked at the school system, they looked at water, they looked at sewer, they looked at public safety, all the various impacts that we would have in town that were related to these two developments. The numbers that they used were, in my view, very conservative. I'm not saying they're perfect, and I guess to just back up a little bit, this whole presentation and all the numbers on here are based on a conceptual design. So if the board decides that this is a project that we want to endorse, it's likely to change. We would send it on to the ZBA. The ZBA would work with the developer, and likely there would be some changes. So these are not final numbers by any means. It's the board's responsibility to look at the broad stroke conceptual designs and decide whether this is a good thing for Grafton or not, whether we want to endorse. Having said that, the numbers that are presented in this municipal impact analysis are along those lines. These are broad stroke numbers. So next slide. Kind of one of the headlines for that municipal impact analysis is around the tax revenue. So between the two developments with the increasing property values and sewer fees, the estimate is around $600,000 in annual revenue. So again, as we think about this development and the impacts to Grafton, there's a positive tax impact to this. I think we all ran on economic development. This may not be the country store that everybody thinks about when they think about economic development, but I think if this board is serious about addressing, the rising tax rates, and a lot of us ran on either delaying or trying to put off the next override. This is one potential contributor to that would be favorable. We would get some additional increased Chapter 78 since we've had a redone foundation formula. The impact to the schools in terms of adding additional school-age children is less than it was a couple of years ago. Since we would be continuing to go into safe harbor and we would be in alignment with and following our housing production plan, we would also open up some grant opportunities potentially. So anything like the MVP program, following the ADA self-evals, any of those plans that you've done that are certified by the state that you're following, and you can demonstrate that you're actually making significant progress towards those ends, it automatically opens up grant opportunities for Grafton. So this is another one of those opportunities where if we can align with that housing production plan, we can unlock some money from the state. So next slide. So there's a discussion about the one-time revenues that we have coming potentially, and so we've got a couple of, and again, these are wrapped up in the discussions that I had with Eastland. We would get $100,000 for Pleasant Street. We'll get $150,000 for Upton Road. Those are just would go into a stabilization account. That stabilization account, when we went to spend it, that would have to go before town meeting. So this isn't like pet projects for the select board or anything like this. This is money that goes to the town in a stabilization account that would be authorized by town meeting. So that could be used for, playground, sidewalks, any of those things that would be potentially on our wish list. It could go to the Affordable Housing Trust to, continue funding it. It could go to capital projects and support our capital stabilization project. So there's a number of things that we could use that for. So that's kind of one source of one-time money. We were in discussions with Eastland about potentially requesting a 50% connection fee relief from Grafton Sewer. They've offered, if that is approved, which there's no guarantee of that, but if that was approved, they would just add that to the stabilization count along with the $100,000, which could then be used for, again, any of those things that I just discussed, capital, affordable housing, and any of those wish list items that we would want to do. So in addition to that $650,000 relief request, they would have to, in any case, pay $650,000, the additional $650,000 to the sewer enterprise fund. So either way, whether that's approved or not, the actual relief request, it's sort of, that's $1.3 million is going to go to Grafton, and either it's going to benefit the sort of sewer ratepayers and the general population in the way of reduced taxes because of taking care of other needs, or it would all go to the ratepayers of Grafton. So either way, it's a $1.3 million that would come to the town. There would be new growth money. So in year one of the development, depending on when they get their permits and when they hit all the development milestones and whatnot, the assessor will do various valuations throughout the life of the project. And there's some additional money that would, depending on when they got their occupancy permit and hit those milestones and whatnot, we would get some additional new growth money from the state. I had a discussion with the assessor's office, and it's impossible to actually put it together because there's too many variables. Mm-hmm. So I just left it in there as there's going to be some additional money and new growth money coming from the state. I don't know what it's going to be, probably a few $100,000. We'd get, $365,000 in building permit fees and then water connection fees as well. So there's a lot of one-time money that's going to come from both of these developments. Any questions on that? No. All right, next slide. So there are some infrastructure improvements that are coming. If we were to take a look at these developments in a favorable way. So they're going to be running, because we've already approved Upton Street, water and sewer down Route 140. There's considerable benefits to Grafton to doing that. It basically, supports connection all down that road for anybody who's there, which is a good benefit. And it also helps the water district kind of further its strategic plan as well. They have outlined some plans to look at, they heard the concerns from the abutter at 1 Peters Way. So the way the water is flowing at the moment from the field into that corner, they're going to be essentially grading it all to run away from that and kind of into the corner. So they would actually improve the situation for the person right on the corner there at 1 Peters Way. And they've also been in ongoing discussions just around the traffic mitigation. So cutting vegetation to make sure there's good sight lines, making sure that there's good signage and all that kind of stuff. So there's some things there. Next slide. So to me, the next two slides are, the ongoing tax revenue to Grafton is important, but I don't think that's the reason, at least on its own, to look at these developments in a favorable way. To me, this is the next couple of slides are really the reason to do it, and this gets to actual affordability and really moving the dial in terms of residential housing affordability in Grafton. So these are the reimbursement rates. There's a lot on this slide, but essentially, we have an ongoing for Upton Street, almost $500,000 in reimbursements from the developer in perpetuity to support a variety of income levels in affordable housing. So this is something Grafton hasn't been able to do or hasn't done. All of our other units, to my knowledge, are at 80% AMI. We've taken, 5%, put those into 50%, 5%, put them into 60% AMI. You can see the reimbursement rates. And if you just look at for example, 2-bed, 2-bath, you're talking $1,100 or $1,200 a month for rental for those. So to me, that's just phenomenal. You can't find a brand new apartment in Grafton that's a 2-bed, 2-bath for $1,200-$1,300. It's just not available.
I think Evan's gonna chime in real
I
quick.
just wanted to, can we talk about AMI for a second? And
Yes.
what that is?
Absolutely.
Because it's area median income. I just wanted to make sure people who may not follow this know what AMI is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks. So
What is
yes,
ours? I thought you were gonna, what is our AMI?
No, I don't know. I don't know top of mind. I just wanted to get to the acronym piece. But what they're essentially doing is, if you're 50% of the area median income, that's what
No, I
you're-
know, yeah. I was just curious if anyone knows the number.
I wanna say it's close to like 350 or something, if I remember the assessor's presentation, somewhere in that neighborhood.
I will
And we can-
do that while you move on. I didn't mean to
Or no,
ruin your
that's the
flow. I
house.
just
so
wanted to
that's
make sure.
that's
That's the house.
the median housing price. So the AMI fluctuates. Obviously, I do you guys know?
For a family of two, 80% would be 63,000.
Okay.
I don't remember the number for 100%, but I want to say it's like somewhere close to $70,000-$80,000 for a single person, I think.
Got it.
So sorry, it's the 63,000 for the family of two was what percent? That
That's
80%?
80% of the median.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
I guess you could do the proportion.
Yeah.
So when we get down to 50 and 60% AMI, we're talking about being able to support a family with a teacher that's starting in Grafton, right? And it's those type of, as we talk about the difficulty of bringing in employment to Grafton because of our housing prices. This is a significant contributor to actually moving that dial for people with lower incomes. So to me, and this is Upton Street, so this is $500,000 annually in subsidies. If you want to go to the next slide, Will, we have a similar story here. This is the Pleasant Street one. This is the reason to do this. It's not because we're getting some additional tax money. That's great, but this is the reason to do it. In my opinion. Any questions on these two slides? All right, let's move on. I've said it a couple times, but I think probably the most important aspect of a LIP is that we have a partnership-oriented development process. So this is very different than a 40B. We have a developer that has now met with people, met with several departments. They've been to lots of select board meetings. That's very different than your typical 40B development, and it's important. So it's important to find the right developers, but it's a significant differentiator between LIPS and traditional 40B developments. We do have the option to do a local preference, which means that you can take a percentage of the units that are available and you can designate those for people that have businesses in Grafton, that work in Grafton, or that already live in Grafton. So it's very much a local benefit. Yep.
Is that specific to the LIP process or 40B in general?
It's 40B in general. Yep. It's a little bit more difficult to use local option, as I understand it, for ownership units. It's a little bit easier for rental units. So it would be easier to fill these, as I understand it, with local residents because they're rentals.
Does the local preference stay with that unit?
It does. Yeah. Again, these are all in perpetuity, and that is managed by somebody that's designated by the state, like CHAPA. So let's see. I mentioned the varied income levels. The Affordable Housing Trust had an ask to try to skew the affordability towards 3-bedroom units. Again, to be in alignment with the housing production plan. So they moved some of the savings into that area to benefit families. So that's good.
So Matt,
Yeah.
sorry, on the 3-bedroom though, there's only one of each at Pleasant Street. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah. So do you guys want to talk about that?
Basically, what he's saying is when
Can you
go to
just,
the-
could you just come up to the mic though, so people, thank you.
So, what Matt is saying, this is Clay Williams from Eastland Partners, for the record. When you look at the rent savings, the highest amount of savings is isolated to the 3-bedroom units. So for a 1-bedroom, you're saving 800,
Right.
900 for a 2, and then 1100 for
Okay.
a 3-bedroom.
Thank you.
And the other major differentiator between LIPs is, you get some type of monetary contribution. In the case of Pleasant Street, it'd be the $100,000 contribution, or some in-kind contribution with, sidewalks, parks, sewer connections, whatever other benefits that you would want. So you wouldn't get that with a traditional 40B. Go ahead. So just thinking about safe harbor, we have a year and 8 months remaining. Eastland has filed their application to DHCD, which is at the state, which will take a look at the endorsement that we did for Upton Street. And it's probably going to be a couple months before they actually get approval from DHCD to move forward with the development. So if we were to consider endorsing Pleasant Street, there would be a similar delay. So we're talking a year and a half maybe of remaining safe harbor that we have. And then Grafton falls out of safe harbor and we're back to 40Bs. So, the sort of, as we think about the alternative paths to take here, there's one path that has us working with the developer that's been a pretty good partner already on a LIP and potentially getting us a couple of additional years of safe harbor and being able to put off potentially some less desirable developments in other parts of town. Or, if we decide not to endorse this, in a year and a half, this development could easily go to another developer. It could stay with Eastland and they could decide not to do a LIP and just do an unfriendly 40B or whatever, just a regular 40B, I suppose. And we wouldn't potentially get the benefits of the LIP that we're looking at currently. So, what I would like to see Grafton think about is a more strategic approach to development. And I think that involves working with developers, and it involves some LIPs, and it involves some density. I know it's not what everybody likes. Nobody likes really any development in Grafton. It's tough. It's a difficult thing for people to accept. But I would rather Grafton be in the driver's seat from a development standpoint and working with the developers that we like, as opposed to having the developers in the driver's seat, which is what we've seen for the last couple decades. It's difficult when the ZBA doesn't have a lot of power to say no to developments. It's really, really difficult for them. So, anyways, so that's that slide.
A question, Matt. So the 1 year, 8 months remaining where we are right now, does that include units that would come on through the DPW site?
It does.
Okay.
DPW site. It does not. No.
Okay.
Sorry.
So it would be the Pine Street that's in there, though?
Mhm.
Okay. So DPW, we're looking at more potential.
Yep.
Okay.
So again, I think the best, most strategic plan for Grafton is to try to get pretty far above that 10%, so that we have permanent safe harbor, and then take on strategic developments throughout town to keep us in safe harbor. That's what a lot of the towns around us are doing that are in safe harbor. They're allowing some density in some parts of town where it makes sense, so that they can stay in safe harbor and stay in control. And I think that, to me, that's the smart more strategic way to think about development. So talking about density, there's a lot of words on this, but if we take a look at the density on these two developments, we're talking about 8-9 units per acre, which is about half what is being prescribed with MBTA. That includes the land that's being donated. So even if you, I'm sorry, it excludes the land includes the land that's being donated. If you exclude the land that's being donated and just look at the land that's being developed, it's at about the same as the MBTA zone. So we're not talking about any density that's anything higher than the state is requiring us to do for the MBTA zone. It's in line with what we put in Prentice Street, even if you exclude the donated land. So, you know, in terms of density, I don't think it's it's out of line with what we'll see in other areas of town, either by right with things like the Pine Street development or the Gateway development up near the Common. Or the MBTA zone. So, you know, so that's just looking at open space and density. What else? So if you go forward a couple slides, Will, I just want to look at there was some, yep. You can't really see it very well. One back, maybe. Couple back. Nope. Okay, never mind. Anyways, yeah, they're gonna, in terms of access to the trails, they're gonna add a sidewalk to Peters Way to connect. Yeah, I think it's one more. There it is. Is it? Yeah. All right. So if you see at the sort of bottom of the development, you can see that windy road looking snake thing. That's the trail that gets you to the trails in the back. You can see that there's sidewalks going on either side of this development, one of which that goes down will connect to Peters Way. So there was some concerns from residents about accessing the actual trails in the back. So that's essentially they're going to just put sidewalk infrastructure in there to provide an opportunity for people to get there. And you can see this sort of parking in the bottom right of the development slide there for people to be able to park to get access there as well. So should be pretty good walking access for residents that will connect into Peters Way and whatnot. So I think that's about that. So you can go back a couple slides. Yep. So just in terms of the developer themselves, you know, they've done a development already up on Wheeler Road, which is the Elm Rock Estates. They, you know, put in 8 3- and 4-bedroom affordable homes in there. There was a land donation component of that. I understand that I guess that land donation was done before they actually took over the development, but nonetheless, you know, I think they were pretty good partners with that. That's basically coming to a conclusion, and you know, so that we've got some experience with working with them. They did a lot of community outreach. You know, obviously they met once with residents. We had some concerns from the residents about notice periods and their availability and whatnot. So when I met with them, I asked them to do another community outreach meeting. They did that. At that meeting, they had some additional concerns, and then they scheduled a third meeting, which was a site visit, which I think everybody up here went to. So, you know, we actually walked the site. They had everything staked out in terms of where the buildings were going to be, how they were going to be oriented, where the parking lot was going to be, all of the buffering and screening and the berms that they were going to be putting in and all that kind of stuff to deal with a lot of the issues that have come up. So, you know, to a greater or lesser extent, I think they've done a reasonably good job trying to address some of the concerns, and we get a lot of them. We got a lot of community input on those. So visibility and beautification, you know, they're planning on, they went through on our site walk the whole discussion about screening and buffering. So they've, you know, they're essentially in the areas where there were concerns about sight lines and whatnot, and actually the look of the development. They're going to be putting in some evergreens, essentially on fairly tall berms, to be able to, you know, screen the development from people that, you know, would be looking out their backyard into the development or across the street or whatever. They took a look at light pollution issues, privacy and proximity. They actually moved the whole development away from Peters Way. They addressed some concerns with traffic and building height. We looked at all of the water management issues during the kind of the walkthrough, and again, a lot of these issues, you know, light pollution, traffic, building height, flooding. I mean, almost everything on here. The ZBA is going to have to go through each one of these things with our engineers in exhaustive detail, and what's on their conceptual designs is likely to change. So, you know, these are things that we can consider for sure, and we should. But these are things that ZBA are going to also have to deal with. And of course, you know, we got detailed written responses from the first round, at least, you know, of their community engagement meeting, and how they were planning to address those concerns. So, you know, hopefully this gives you a little bit of a flavor of Eastland as a developer. I've never seen a developer work like this in Grafton, certainly. You know, some of the folks on ZBA could probably talk to it a little bit better, but you know, Eastland's been a pretty good partner to try to get this through. So, next slide. So along that that same vein, I guess, you know, the starting proposal for this was 6 buildings. They met with the development team. The development team said that might be a little too much, and so they just immediately went down to 104. So they went down from 6 to 4 buildings. So you can go to the next slide. So that's kind of where we're at. You know, they changed their buffering considerably, which is basically just the space between the edge of the development and the adjacent street, which is Peters Way. You can see, you know, the increases that they made to essentially, you know, address in part the visibility and also the privacy issues for the people on Peters Way. So they shifted the whole thing basically away from Peters Way to help the concerns for those abutters. And again, this is all before they even get to the ZBA. So all of these things that they've already adjusted can be readjusted if the ZBA feels like it. We've got you know, a significant increase in terms of green space areas as well. So that's pretty considerable. You know, just overall, if we think about this development pattern, as far as residential development, you know, if we're thinking about density, you know, another really important way to think about density and green space and development patterns, you know, Grafton and all the towns surrounding us have significant constraints around the amount of developable land. So there's different ways that you can develop that have different impacts on the environment and on climate change and whatnot. Building more dense as opposed to giving everybody their own, you know, half acre or acre lot so that they can have a nice lawn. And more space as an individual family. This is an environmentally friendly way to develop, as opposed to, you know, kind of the single family development that we've seen historically in Grafton. So that's just another kind of way to think about density in the midst of development patterns. So next slide. So I won't go through all these things, but you know, because I've talked about a lot of them. Let's see. Yeah, I think I've talked about just about all these already, so we can just move to the next one. So on this slide, I just wanted to basically, you know, put down some of the concerns that I thought might be lingering in the board's mind to just, and I'm not going to go through these bullets individually, but if there are any concerns that anybody wants to talk through relative to Pleasant Street, I just wanted to kind of open it up for that discussion. So I've been talking a lot. I'm going to shut up and just let the board have its discussion a little bit so that we can explore some of these topics.
All right, thank you. That is an awesome presentation. Does anybody have any concerns or discussion topics they want to start with?
I guess I can start. You know, I understand the notion of the density and that it's, you know, in keeping what can be done for that site. It just, I was on the walkabout and it felt dense to me, even with just the stakes there, I guess. So how that's mitigated, I'm not quite sure, but it does seem for that location on that particular street, you know, the 140 site to me makes sense in terms of easy access onto a major throughway versus this Pleasant Street, you know, just where it is, what that street looks like, and what that property looks like. So, you know, I probably was maybe the one that brought up, or maybe other people as well, but, you know, just the overall density to me is just seems to be a lot. And I did ask specifically that night related to the wetland, you know, just how close it was back there. I know that, you know, you assured me that that had been looked at, so it seems that it's pretty close in the back. And I don't know if the dog park and the play area, was that was that behind your last stake that we saw that night?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
The impact of the wetlands is, we are in the buffer zone
Mm-hmm.
only. And the, I don't know if you have a slide perhaps, but it's
And that was it.
We'll go back.
the last page maybe, I think it was.
Next one.
Second to last page, I think it was. One more. Yeah, there you go.
Yep,
Good
that's
to
one
line.
I'm on here.
I'm doing the best I can.
Might have to sneak up in here.
I've got it pulled up here too, that same one.
There's an area right in here, there's a 25 no disturb zone, which we're not clearing regardlessly. And then there is a 50-foot buffer zone, which is this area in here. And then the 100-foot, which is right in here. So there's some slight grading in the dog park, but we're pretty much out of the 50-foot buffer zone, which is very, very good.
Okay.
There's no wetlands replication at the site either, because we're not in resource areas as well, so it's just purely buffer zone activity.
Mm-hmm. I'm off the slide now with the concerns, see if there are any more were.
So I
Go
have a concern that I heard that's a little bit off topic from density, but I did hear that some people felt like we didn't get enough, right? We can ask for the moon. Why aren't we asking for the moon? So my question would be, would you guys consider maybe building us a pickleball court somewhere in town if we needed that, and just add that to the ask? Are you guys open to adding to the negotiation if that is something you're willing to do? If you can have a seat up in the mic too, that's.
Just for the record, Chad Boardman for Eastland Partners. Well, we came here, I think, primarily quite a while ago to see if there was any type of areas that could be done for potentially ball fields or redo a basketball court or whatnot, and nothing was really identified. So that's why we went to more of the monetary contribution right now for both of those parcels, where the town could decide where they would want that, the money spent, shall we say. Leave it up to the, either the board or the residents of Grafton to deal with. The monetary donations were above and beyond what we're proposing. We're probably already at that limit with that 50 and 60. This I think is the 7th meeting I think we've been to with you guys as well. We've slowly modified things. We've added trails. We've done more sidewalks. The sewer connection and the water connection fees in town are extremely high. When you actually look at that, just the one-time donations to the town of Grafton is pretty much around $10,000 a unit, which is pretty high as is right now. But if there's some small things, we would obviously, take a peek at,
Okay.
But
And I definitely sprung that on you.
Yeah.
You had no idea I was going to ask.
yeah,
So
I mean,
I understand if you're not.
if some of those funds are the 100,000, or if you brought me something and said, well, we want to do this, we might be able to do some of that work out of that 100,000. Might be a little cheaper or something like that, but we're pretty much kind of capped at where we are, especially with the 50 and 60 AMI. And
Yeah, so, Will, can you go back to that slide, to the Pleasant Street AMI piece? So, in discussions with Eastland, the way that I thought about kind of that their contributions is to the LIP is, we could have asked for more monetary contribution, right? But I think what, the basic flavor of that I got from the board, particularly Ray, but also myself being on the Affordable Housing Trust, was to try to actually move the dial for affordability in Grafton. Now, we could ask for some less 50 and 60% AMI to get some more one-time money. But I think having the additional reimbursements at 50, 60% AMI in perpetuity is a way more valuable benefit to Grafton. So that's, and as I was thinking about kind of the deal, that's how I was thinking about it, is that we would rather have a perpetual benefit that actually helped people live in Grafton, as opposed to more one-time money. So that's kind of the way that I thought about it.
Us being the developer, we thought the same thing. Is similar what you see when people go to the country store for a lottery ticket. They offer the old, one-time payout, or would you like the whole enchilada in 15 years? And obviously something that's a perpetuity is a lot better than just giving more cash up front. And plus it serves the purpose of the affordability, which is a huge crisis right now. And even in the rental segment, everybody can Google now. It's even become a problem even with rental units as well nowadays.
So Colleen, I take your point. In the last slide, in terms of next steps, one of the discussion points is, are we happy with this deal? And if not, do we want to, go back and ask for something else? So if that's something you want to do, let's have that discussion. I imagine what we would have to do some trade-offs. So it would be a change in AMI in favor of something else, or, whatever. So if the board's not happy with the structure of this LIP in terms of the contributions from the developer, then let's have that discussion.
Okay. But I would say I am happy with what was negotiated and where we're at this level to send it off to the ZBA. But I was asking that question because it was asked of me, and I think articulating it for everyone paying attention is important.
Thanks. Yep.
How does everybody else feel? Would they?
I understand what we're doing with the AMI. To me, that I think that's the better deal and the better move. I think what I heard a lot of, especially on the site tour, were some hesitancy towards the density that we have, which I know has already come down greatly, and the discussion around potentially using flat roofs instead of pitched in order to make that the height zoning requirements. So I don't know how much of that we can address now, if it's worth us having a discussion about. But yeah, those were, I'd heard similar notions about asking for more things. But to me, I think the real preference and the real crux was around the density and
Roofs.
thank you.
I thought it was flat roof.
It is flat roof.
Oh, okay, because you said the opposite.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. Just want to make sure.
Flat roofs to meet the zoning height requirements
Yeah.
as opposed to pitch.
But again, it could go back to hip roofs if ZBA decides that aesthetically that's a better look right? So these things are all subject to ZBA discussion and modification. I haven't seen what I've seen what the hip roof looks like. I haven't seen what a flat roof looks like on a three-story, story structure.
Same.
But again, those aesthetic concerns will be addressed by ZBA. Much of what we've been discussing is well within the purview of ZBA. So, again, we're kind of just looking at the broad stroke conceptual designs.
Okay.
Do you want to go back? Let's see, what else was there?
One other thing. Just, I know that we've gotten a lot of correspondence, and certainly I've had folks reaching out to me quite a bit about all this as well. And, one thing that seemed somewhat compelling was when the traffic study was done, versus what the traffic is like now. And I guess just throwing that out to confirm that you folks feel that it really does reflect the traffic in 2022 going forward. I know it was brought up the night of the walkabout, but I've got
Sure.
a lot of input on that.
Sure, absolutely. We had a traffic study performed in advance by a company called GPI. It's one of the largest traffic engineers firms around. And I believe they did their traffic counts in July. And from what I understand, July is the most busiest time. Everybody's going to say, well, school's not in session. But actually, in the world of traffic engineers, July is the heavy time of year. And that's when the counting was performed.
Which year was it?
I think it was 2 years. 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I believe.
I
Yeah.
think it's more the notion of not so much the month, and I trust those study
Yeah.
folks that say that July is the month, but more the year and what was going on in
And
terms of
and
being out.
what was happening in that year? If what's happening is COVID related.
Correct.
So what the engineers did was take adjusted that value another 2.5%. So they took the values of July traffic counts in the world of the manuals and everything, and then they adjusted it another 2.5% as well, and took that as the worst case scenario.
Okay.
And that is within lines of what the Mass DOT uses as well. But again, this would go back to a Townsend engineer, a VHB, or somewhat for review of our traffic study, of course.
And I thought it was 2021. I think we were. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're sort of out of COVID. Our engineers will definitely review that. We did on the Wyman Gordon traffic study. We weren't happy with it, so we made them make some adjustments and redo the calculations. Again, it's difficult because this development isn't like we don't have a definitive site design yet, so it's difficult to tell a lot of these values. But what I read of the traffic study is even if you adjusted it up by, a fairly moderate amount, it still wouldn't rise to the, to the area of concerns. One thing that I did hear from a resident was in terms of the accidents and that analysis, and I just wanted to address that a little bit. The commentary was around that the traffic studies, I think, because that's what the traffic studies are required to do, we're heavily concerned and focused on the intersections at the end of the road of Pleasant Street. There was a fair number of accidents on Pleasant Street itself, more so than even the intersection. So there was some concern about that as well. So I don't know if you wanted to talk to that at all.
I know enough to be dangerous. I'm not a traffic engineer. From what I understand, the report, though, when they generate the reports, is that they get all of the accidents reports from the local, probably fire department as well, to certify where all the accidents were for in between. And then I think the end is Mass DOT controlled, so they also investigated both ends as well, and they were accounted for. They were less than, I believe, what the median was. So there was less accidents. Whatever happened, there was less than typically there should technically be on those two locations. But again, that report will go out. I'm not
So I mean,
professional engineer about.
Generally, I think from a town perspective, if we look at a high number of accidents, the town determines there's a high number of accidents on Pleasant Street, that's something we have to address as a town, and I think that goes to the Traffic Safety Committee, to figure out different strategies for trying to manage traffic on the road.
Yeah, one of the reports that came out from some of our tech review meetings from the police chief was obviously some speeding concerns, and whether we could do some signage or flashing lights in certain particular areas, obviously under the traffic engineer's guidance of where those locations would be. Hopefully, we would obviously honor that thing. So
Yeah. Okay.
to help improve that. So.
All right, I guess I just wanted to mention one thing about in terms of density and the discussion about is this out of character for the neighborhood. It's a difficult one to think about if you live in that neighborhood, but we don't have a lot of developments like this in town, and I was a little bit dismayed by some of the commentary that I heard around, well, we should put rental units like on the outskirts of town. It's just not a kind of fair and equitable way of thinking about housing. I don't want to be relegating people who are renting to like the outskirts and out in no man's land. I think as a town, we should be considering taking developments like this and integrating them into neighborhoods so that it's not unusual. I can tell you this.
All right,
If-
we're not
excuse
gonna
us,
yell. We're not
excuse
gonna
us.
yell.
That's a dangerous,
Please stop. Please stop, or you're going to be removed. Please stop. Thank you.
I'll say this with complete confidence. If I lived on Peters Way as an abutter, I would be 100% in support of this development.
Are you in a butter?
Please
I'm not.
stop. I'm going to allow you guys to speak, but please stop for right now.
So part of the trouble is that we haven't done any development like this in Grafton. We've primarily done 40B developments, which have been controlled by the developers. The development flavor for the last 15, 20 years has been single family homes in large lots all over town. So that's mostly what we have. That's problematic from a lot of different standpoints. We don't have housing diversity. There aren't enough rental units in Grafton. There just aren't. That's a fact. You see every day somebody posting, hey, I need a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom or whatever, and a certain amount of money. You just can't find them in Grafton. They're not available. So that's problematic for us. And if we're just going to say for every development that comes along like this, well, it doesn't look like the house that's right next to it, that's just not going to be sustainable. I don't think that's a good approach for us. We should be integrating these with the existing neighborhoods, similar to what Eastland's doing, by connecting it with sidewalks, by creating the accessibility to the trails, and continuing to do what they're doing to move the development in a direction so that it doesn't have as much impact on the direct abutters and whatnot. They've been doing a good job, I think, partnering with the town to try to address those concerns. So I don't see this necessarily as out of character. It's to me the big problem is that we consistently have just pushed developments like this away, and we've just said no to them, and that's a problem for us. It's a real waste of land resources in Grafton, which are precious. To give everybody a half or an acre lot, it's just not a sustainable development pattern. Tax-wise, this is good. So, again, we all ran on, financial sustainability, putting off the next override. If we're serious about that, this is one way to do it. So anyways, I don't consider this to be out of character. We're not talking about a tenement. We're not talking about, a bizarre business or 5-6 story buildings. We're talking about modest, 3-story apartment buildings. It's
Which
not,
exist on Pleasant Street.
yeah. I mean, they are sprinkled around town, but
Where are those on Pleasant Street?
Go down the end by the intersection of Elmwood.
There's 3-story apartment building?
Yep.
There's about 8 units there, not 140.
Just
A
saying.
little bit of a difference, like an enormous difference.
But they exist, is what I said.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Okay.
Do you live there too?
I have a
No,
question.
don't live there, I don't.
I have a question for what it's worth. Just Matt, so just in terms of examples on pushing, you said we pushed these types of developments in the past, that we've had a lot of them?
I don't think we've had a lot of them.
Okay, sorry, I feel like you just said that, like, there's been a number of, we've continuously pushed these types of developments.
No, but another
over the
example
years.
might be 25 Worcester Street, right?
Okay,
So,
but not like big examples in the past where we pushed this away, because I don't really recall.
no, I'll use that one example, but, you know, we haven't, certainly haven't encouraged this type of development. And I think, you know, it's time for us to consider.
Yeah, and that's
Different
perfectly fine.
types
I
of
just wanted
developments.
to clarify that.
Sure.
You know,
No, I
we
appreciate
haven't
that.
pushed these away historically. I mean, we, as you've said before, this is kind of a newer thing.
Fair.
And just one question too, relative to the chief concern, because I know that was brought to me. So with that signage that he's looking for, I think in Upton Street as well, would that go into the lip, or that would just be something you would verbally say, yep, we're going to take care of it?
Absolutely. That would be part of the ZBA application anyways.
Okay.
A lot of the things that we've said we would like to do here or propose to do, we want to bring exactly those things that we did talk about with the board here and all the other boards in town to the ZBA process to make sure, yeah, that's what everybody said. So.
Okay, because that was one thing
Absolutely.
that was on my list.
Sure. No, it's important to us.
And that's the other thing to remember about this process and where we are right now. It's high level still at this part. We did our part, which was negotiate what we wanted from the lip, but the drill down, the density, all of those things, that happens at the ZBA level. That doesn't happen here. So what we need to decide is, do we allow it to get to the ZBA level? And I think that's where we are tonight.
So we can go to the next slide, which is potential next steps. So, you know, we can discuss if we're happy with the current offer, if we want to do something different. We can vote to endorse or not endorse, or schedule a future endorsement discussion and vote. It's really up to the board. I know there was a ton of information tonight. Yeah, I'm happy for it to go any direction that you guys want it to go in.
I agree there was a lot of information, but nothing really new. It's all been stuff we've been talking about for months. So, but I do see there are a lot of people here. So if the board has any more input, we can talk about that, or we can allow public comment, whatever you guys would like to do.
Just a couple quick, I think, additional notes. Maybe I'm interpreting this wrong. I don't want to, put words in Matt's mouth, but I think in general we've not been resistant maybe to these projects, but to 40B projects in the past, which has gotten us into, some of the situations that people have loudly complained against in those areas. So not, maybe something of this density in particular, but in the past. I would also, I made this point the night we did the walkthrough, and I think it's important to make now. Make sure everybody realizes that something is going to happen with that lot. Okay, it is a private land sale. Something is going in there. As Eastland noted ahead of time, they could potentially just sit on it and wait us out. And if we come out of safe harbor, then we have no input in these things, and it's right back to square one and getting something that, based on what the current, some of the current complaints that we're hearing, they're just going to be amplified. So leaving it as isn't really an option. That's not something that's going to happen. So I think we need to keep the focus on moving this in a constructive fashion and realizing the reality of the situation.
Anne Marie, do you have any more you want to add?
Nope.
Okay. So I will allow public input, but this is not public comment, so it's going to be limited to 1 to 2 minutes. If anybody would like to speak on this before, yes, sir. You just have to come up to the mic, say your name, please.
My name is Jeff Warft. I live at 1 Peters Way. So I appreciate the adjustments that Eastland made to the original plan, so I'm not really going to comment on that. But I do think, and this was mentioned earlier, the traffic should be looked at not as a way of necessarily stopping it, but more we need to deal with the traffic. Because it's already bad in that area. They're speeding all the time. It's a dangerous street because it's windy. And adding more to it is only going to make the problem worse. And I think the select board should look at what can be done to improve the situation. I don't know how that works, but it's pretty bad the way it is now. And if you average out the number of cars over the course of a day, it probably doesn't add up to that much. But at certain periods of time, it's like a highway. And when you add the number of cars and the speed that they're driving at, it's really, really bad. And now adding more is gonna make it worse, so I'm putting it to the select board to find a way to make that better.
Okay, so that the traffic will be studied when it gets to the ZBA level, if it makes it there as well. And then, you know, we do have a traffic study committee that we can also ask them to review that street as well. But I don't think it's gonna solve your concerns tonight, unfortunately.
No, but I want it to, I don't want this to be looked at as it's either built or it's not built. It could be built and also we can solve a problem that we have that might get worse if we don't deal with it.
Yeah, excellent point. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Todd Kramer, 1 Peters Way. My concern is, I appreciate what they've done also, is does your letter of endorsement lock them into the lit process then, so that if they were to wait out their option to purchase the land, would they be able to slip in and then do a 40B? Or would this lit endorsement actually lock them into doing the lit process?
It's my understanding that you would endorse the LIP. It would go to the ZBA. If it doesn't go forward in the ZBA process, it's essentially dead. So then we go back to the drawing board. So essentially, if ZBA then said no, and then we came out of safe harbor, anyone that owned that property could go forward with a 40B.
Answers the question. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody on Zoom have their hand raised?
You do have one hand on Zoom.
Okay.
And Julie just needs to unmute and she can talk.
Hi, this is Julie Capizzello of 34 Pleasant Street. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes,
Yep.
we can.
Yep.
Thank you. So just more, thank you for allowing me to comment publicly here. I was not able to make the walk. I live at 34 Pleasant Street, so I guess that I might be just outside the scope of the build. And first and foremost, I just want to thank you guys for all the work that you've put into it, and I totally understand like controversy in both sides here. But I mean, I guess my two main points of concern are the traffic and the density. And I did comment on a Facebook post that Matt, you had posted after the walk. So I guess like speaking of the design, you had mentioned like it's for workforce housing. I guess I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around like 3-story building and like the design, the appeal of living there. When my husband and I first moved here in 2013, like we have an old antique farmhouse with lots of land in the back, and I've rented in the past. I just can't see the appeal of this place because of the locations, right? It's not a main thoroughfare like in Upton Street. And then sidewalks. There's no sidewalks here. I guess one of my points, and it ties into traffic too. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Commonwealth Ave in Worcester. There's stop signs at every single cross street. I don't know if that's a consideration. I would ask the board to really like look at that because like so many other people with traffic concerns, that's definitely a factor. So I guess my 2 points are density, the design of the building, putting that many units, 104, and you know, it was mentioned that there are other 3-story buildings. Let's just please look at that. So it seems that, you know, a lot of minds may or may not be made up here, and that's great, but those are my 2 points. The design of it with the density and the traffic. So thank you.
Thank you.
Makes sense.
Yes, sir. In the back.
Am I allowed to say something?
You gotta
You have
just
to
come
come
up to
up
the
front.
mic and say your name and address,
Mark,
please.
16 Christopher Drive. So, why do we have to do this? You said earlier, I was watching on Zoom, not about tax revenue, but then a little while ago you said it is about tax revenue. I'm just out of curiosity, because I'm new to this. I've lived here for almost 30 years, hadn't paid a ton of attention. Why are we doing this?
So we're discussing it.
Well, it sounds like it's a foregone conclusion, so why are we doing it?
Well, it wasn't foregone before I showed up, but
Feels that way.
well, I'm advocating for it because I'm the representative for the Affordable Housing Trust, and I'm also advocating for it because I think it's a good development for Grafton. I think it's important for us. It's a little different than what we've seen historically. What I said earlier was that I wouldn't do it just because of tax revenue. That's not the reason to do it.
I thought I heard you just say that a minute ago. So
But it's an important contributing factor. For me, the reason to do it is so that we can accrete, and this is the reason that we kind of structured the deal the way that we did, is we're actually creating much more affordability in Grafton. So we're taking lots of units and we're putting them at 50 and 60% AMI, which will support lower income people actually renting in Grafton. That's an important benefit that's in perpetuity if we were to move forward with this.
the benefit is the money, the tax revenue.
Nope.
That's not what he
I
said.
just would like to make another point.
That's what what did he say?
Can I just make another point real clear? What we're discussing tonight is whether or not to endorse the project. It
Right.
does not mean it gets built. It just means it moves along in the stage to the ZBA.
Yeah, and it's all good. It's just that you don't live there. We do. She's right. Pleasant Street is a raceway, and it's getting worse. You're adding 140 units?
Nope.
104. Sorry. 104 still seems like a lot. So if you're down there, you should try driving through there at 10, 11 o'clock at night. It's a lot. So I'm all for developing everything. And I probably don't have a vote or a choice here. But I wonder if there's a way to really scrutinize this, because if you don't live there, which you don't,
You don't know where
it's
I live, sir.
complicated. I'm assuming that you don't.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, I do. And I'm not mad. I mean, I'm just like confused because I'm trying to learn. I do drive on Pleasant Street, and I'm all for people living in this town. I moved here from out of state. It was a new development. It was a hill. Now I occupy a house there. But it's a lot of cars flying through there. And I don't know if that traffic study you cited was choppy. I heard it on the car on the ride over. I wonder how real that might be, because it's bad.
Okay.
Would
Thank you.
Would you consider driving over there on a Saturday evening at 10 o'clock and seeing what it's like?
Sure. I do drive that street all the time because I do live near there.
So you feel it then?
Yes.
You get it.
Yeah. I
So
do
is there any other way
understand.
around this? Is there a way to make it 80 units?
Well, that's when we get to the ZBA.
70?
That's not for necessarily tonight's discussion. It's to either endorse the project or not. And then those discussions come later down along the process.
Okay.
So just in the way of talking about what, we can talk about Prentice Place is a good example, I think, of how ZBA works with developers to shape developments. So they took that development from conceptual design, which I think had 42 or 45 units. They were able to essentially work with the developer to reduce the building by a whole story. They changed the orientation of the building so that it was more aesthetically pleasing and fit better into the actual lot and whatnot and the surrounding area. They changed I think it was the sewer hookup because what was proposed was for Grafton an undesirable sewer connection type. So they had them significantly re-engineer that and change that. So ZBA will go through that whole process, and they have a public hearing process. We're not required to do any kind of public hearing. We want public input, so that's why we're doing this. This is, that's why we encourage the developers to meet with residents and whatnot. ZBA is required to have a public process, a public hearing process, which requires them to take public input, to solicit all the feedback, that you guys have been providing. It's great. It's all information that they need. They'll very likely, if they decide that this is a good development based on the endorsement and that they want to take it on, there's going to be changes. So it's again, we're just at the conceptual design phase. It could very well be 80 or 70. I don't know. I don't know what the eventual unit count will be. That's really up to the developer and ZBA once we endorse. Once they send their application off to the state approves it, it goes to the public hearing process with ZBA. Then the whole thing kind of goes from conceptual design to actually a buildable, approved design. And I don't know how close it'll be from what it is today to what actually gets built. But if ZBA decides that they go forward with it, which they don't have to, ZBA in their first meeting could just say, nope, we're in safe harbor and we're not going to take this development on. I don't think that would be favorable for the community. I don't think it would be favorable for the abutters, because I think the very high likelihood is we would just end up with a 40B at some point. So, or they would abandon the project and just move on from the purchase and sales that they have, and some other developer would come in, and I don't know what they would propose. So, it's not easy for the select board to make this decision. It may seem like it's a foregone conclusion, but at least my thinking wasn't fixed at the beginning of the process, but after having looked into all the different aspects of it, this is kind of where I'm at tonight. So,
And there's no other place anywhere in town
So I
to
think
put these 104 units.
we've addressed that. I'm going to have other people have an opportunity. Okay.
Got it.
Thank you.
thanks.
You can come up, sir. Again, we're limiting these to 1 to 2 minutes. Okay.
My name is Greg Fox. I'd like to address a few things here. One is, I just want to remind you guys that we passed 2 overrides in a row. So I don't understand the kind of feeling like we're being talked down to here. We're handing up over our money to do things. We know you guys are trying to, get some things done here, and these guys are trying to make a buck, but the tone doesn't feel right, first of all. But my concern here is public safety. I haven't heard one of you say anything about how you're going to address the public safety concerns with increasing the population by, 1% versus if a quarter of that if it was townhouses or whatever. We currently have the largest, I think, call or volunteer fire department in the state of Massachusetts, which is not a selling feature. That's unheard of in a town this size. Nobody has that. It's archaic. We spend nothing on the fire department. It's not their fault. Our police department, by Massachusetts standards is, 50% of the national average, which the national average, we would have 60 police officers in this town. I think we have, 19, 20?
We have 25, and the national average would be 30.
Okay, the national average would not be 30. It's 3.4 per thousand.
It's 1.8 by FBI standards.
Well, listen. Nonetheless, we're low.
Listen,
Am I
to
correct? Are we low?
That's the number. Yeah, but we just added.
Okay,
we just added up to 5. So
You
we're
could
gonna
select where you want to get the numbers from, okay, but we're not at a number we should be at for 21,000 population. Is that what you're trying to tell me right now?
Yeah, we're low. We've been talking
We're
about
low.
it for the past.
Okay,
18
so we're
months.
low. So
Yeah.
what are you arguing with me about it for?
Well, we do have.
I'm trying to make a point that we're low on public safety,
Nobody's arguing with you.
but you're
sir.
trying to increase the population.
We are adding
without-
police force too.
What's that?
We are adding to the police
Okay, well,
force
what are
as
we
well.
doing about our fire department and our private?
We're
ambulance
also
out
in the
of Worcester?
process of adding
So-
to that as well.
so-
We just hired our first full-time chief. We're
Okay,
also
but
in
I'm
the-
saying like you're growing the population rather than growing businesses. For instance, the south. Can I speak?
Sure.
The south quarter, south side of Grafton, has nothing there. No drugstores, no supermarkets that these people would go to, right? Nothing. And there's no idea that maybe we should develop that and bring in some commercial tax revenue rather than more people, 1% of the population, versus 0.8% maybe of our town budget is going to come in tax revenue. It's not going to there's no benefit there at all. The benefit would be commercial businesses for us to use over there, for them to use over there. They're 5 miles away from the train station. You can't widen that road. It's windy. It's dangerous. There's children. There's dogs on it. And you can't widen it. You can't put sidewalks down the whole thing. So, what is the plan here? There's no concern for public safety in this at all?
All right.
You're just going to expect them to do this much more, probably 10 calls a week, despite whatever these numbers are going to say, because none of these numbers are correct. If you're incentivizing 3 bedrooms, you're incentivizing children. It's not going to be 27 children. Everybody knows that. So, more tax. I'm glad that's funny to you. More tax, by the way, so we're sure. No on the pickleball court, right? Is that correct?
All right.
Is it a no on the pickleball? No, I want it on the record. Is it a no?
No on the what?
Did you say no, you're not going to build a pickleball court if they want it? That
All right.
was what I heard.
Thank you. I'm gonna have. I don't need.
Why-
to,
why
if
do
you're
I not
directing
deserve
to the
an
board,
answer to that?
You're not.
You
You're not
don't want an
talking
answer
to
to
the
that.
developer. You're talking to the board. Thank you. We'll have
Okay.
somebody else.
Well,
have
what
a
is
turn.
the answer?
Your turn
Is
is,
there a-
over,
is
sir.
it-
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak?
Well, so I just want to address quickly. Oh, go ahead.
No, please.
No.
I was just going to say, having attended the finance committee meetings, police and fire are absolutely something that we're budgeting to increase members for over the coming 5 years. We have plans in place for those things so that public safety, per the chief's recommendations, has been addressed. The current police chief does not have concerns with, really how the staffing projections are laid out. I think a lot of these complaints about traffic safety and whatnot could be made of a lot of the roads in Grafton. That's the reality of the situation. We have backcountry roads. They're winding. That's how it is. I'm not saying, any one is worse than the other, but I feel like that's an argument that's likely to come up a lot of places. In having a lot of discussions with folks around town, I was surprised it's just kind of an aside, how many people started off in town renting in Bruce Hollow in particular before moving out to, having the opportunity to purchase their own home. So again, for me to I guess help solidify my stance with Matt, I think available rentals at an affordable rate are an important entry into the town, and something that a lot of current residents have tried to take advantage of in the past in order to get their foot in the door here.
And I will say that tonight is not a public hearing. The board does not actually have to hear public comment, but we are, because we do appreciate it. Public hearings will be coming down the line. So I'm going to take the last two comments. I saw two more hands back there, and then we're going to be done with, you have someone on Zoom.
You've had 3 people on Zoom.
Three people on Zoom. All right, that's it. After the 3 people on Zoom and the 2 women in the back there, we're going to be done with the comments. So we can just do the Zoom people really quickly, please.
Okay. Scott just needs to unmute and he'll be able to speak.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, this is Scott Novitsky. I'm at 49 Pleasant Street, very close to this location. I am fairly new to town. I have 3 children, moved here less than a year ago. Tonight's the first thing I've actually been invited to. I actually got someone drop something in my mailbox. So I think that was a little bit of a, it's good to hear this. And it sounds like there's been a number of meetings, but I'm not a direct abutter, but I'm pretty close. And so I think, maybe just making sure the awareness of these types of meetings or these types of communications would be helpful. I'd like to echo what a couple of people have mentioned. I'm not going to go into detail, but have children. One's in the school system, bus every morning and afternoon. Traffic is a concern there for me. I have to walk across the street to get my mail. Large times have to wait quite a lengthy time to do that. So, traffic is definitely a concern. It is a backcountry road, so a little bit confused as far as why a 104 unit apartment complex would fit in that area. Just seems a little bit out of character. So those are just a few of my comments. Just wanted to note them for the record. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys.
All right, thank you. And going forward, traffic, density, and public safety have all been brought up, so we are very aware. So any comments going forward, if we could have something other than that, that would be helpful. Next person on Zoom, please.
Yep.
Evening, guys. Bill McCusker, 40 Blanchard Road. To Mr. Offen, great presentation. Thank you. One point of clarification on the slide where you talked about the affordable units and the 50% AMI and the 60% AMI. You called out that the 50 and 60 were in perpetuity. Does that imply the other ones are not?
No, they're all in perpetuity.
All right, I just wanted to clarify that and have that on the record, that they're all supposed to be in perpetuity.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Have a great night, guys.
Appreciate it.
And the last person on Zoom.
Yep.
Hey guys, Ed Frisbee, 25 Danielle Drive. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. So as one of the few people from the area speaking tonight who's in favor of this, I just wanted to make my voice heard here. We've all known, living in that neighborhood, that field's been for sale. I mean, I knew when I bought my place 11 years ago that place was for sale. So we've always known that something was going to go in there. And, this is a sort of commentary that we hear every single time there's a development brought up about the traffic and about safety concerns. And really, in neighborhood after neighborhood and community after community in Massachusetts, that's why there is a housing crisis in Massachusetts. And that's why you do see your tax bills go as high as they do, because tax bills are based on fair market value. And of course, fair market value is based on, supply and demand. So, for people that are kind of having an angry knee-jerk reaction to this, I would just urge you to be patient, to wait out the process, and to consider that when Peters Way was built, which, by the way, is a 40B, if I'm not mistaken, and when our development on Christopher and Danielle Drive was built, people came to the planning board and people came to the select board with the same concerns. And I drive Pleasant Street every day, twice a day. It's not that bad. It's perfectly fine. I think concerns about speed and traffic are a little bit overblown tonight. You know, I drive it during rush hour in the morning. I drive it coming home at night. It's a road. You know, be careful going across the bridge. Look out for joggers. We could do some clear cutting there, but otherwise, it's fine. So I urge you guys to support this and move forward with it, because I think it's important to a lot of people who are in the situation sort of the same as my family, and the same as a lot of families around town who are struggling to make ends meet and who need a place to live. You know, those are the people we ought to be looking out for. So thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll do the woman in the middle and then the woman in the back.
So I just had some questions.
I just need your name and address.
Oh,
please.
sorry, Lindsay Fox, 61 Sunrise Ave. As far as the project goes for Safe Harbor, if only one of the two projects were endorsed, would we still be protected under Safe Harbor? Or
Yeah, I think it would just be a shorter period.
it's a short, okay, so
Yep.
does it go by like however many units?
It is
are?
units built, I think in
Units
the
built.
calendar year is what it is, and
Okay.
they compare that to what's prescribed in the housing production plan. So we have a yearly goal.
Okay,
And,
right, yeah.
And if we, exceed that yearly goal, which I think is
Is it
38
39
units.
or 38?
38 or
something like
39
that?
units, yeah. As long as we're doing that. So if we do one development, as opposed to two, we will get like an extra year of safe harbor just based on that one development. And as Anne Marie said, we've got,
So if you were to get like 100, if you get like 200 units, say, would you get more years based on that, or no? Is it every couple years they
so there's
assess
a
it,
couple of
or-
things. There's sort of one-time safe harbor, which is if you exceed your housing production plan, then they give you 1 or 2 years.
Okay.
So we're talking 2 years if we do the two developments, probably 1 year if we did one development. There's another threshold, which is if you reach 10%, as long as you're above 10%, then you're in permanent safe harbor until you dip below the 10%.
Now, do you think with the MBTA and the other 40R in South Grafton that we could get there?
I think we're close.
Because those do count, right? towards those-
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Yep, they do for sure.
all right.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, just being, a homeowner in the R20 zone, and, when I hear about potential apartments going up in a place that's zoned for homes, and I think of how, we have the small lots, we're the starter homes. We're the little guys. We are going to be the homes that we're going to want to preserve for, potential home ownership in the future. I feel like that there needs to be some sort of preservation of those neighborhoods with the smaller lots, because those are going to be the ones that are realistically going to be able to be owned by these people that it might be, not able to afford homes that are on 2 acres of land or stuff like that. So I feel like I sometimes, thinking about this, I know that everyone gets emotional about it because it's like it's in our neighborhood, it's kind of like encroaching. And what does, if you put up one apartment complex, well, what does that, then the next plot of land that's right down the road, are you going to put up another one because one's already there? It's kind of, that's kind of a question. And also I just have one question left. Is there any concern about Eastland's financial records? Is there a concern about potentially abandoning a property in the middle of this being built?
So can I address that a little bit? So just a couple points. In terms of the property management, the property ownership, and maintenance and whatnot, Eastland have built in Newton, they've built in Wellesley, so they're building in towns like that, really nice developments. Intuitively, you would think if you put apartment buildings in, it's going to bring your home values down. It doesn't. The studies show that if you put in a new apartment building of the variety that they're putting in, it actually increases home values for the surrounding community. So they have a professional company to do all of the property maintenance and management. That I can't speak to their financials. I'm not that close to Eastland at all, but based on their the fact that they're working in so many different towns, they're a developer that builds and then owns, so they don't sort of flip it to another management company or another owner. They build and they own and maintain basically within their own within their own operation. So it's in their best interest to partner with the town to do a good development and also maintain it. So that's about all I can really say on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
And this will be our last comment of this section.
Hi, Shannon Martin, 16 Sunrise Ave. A lot of my concerns were already addressed, so I'm going to skip over that piece. I just wanted to say that as a resident of Sunrise Ave, we didn't get a lot of information. It's kind of just been shared haphazardly, kind of from neighbor to neighbor. Some of the meetings I wasn't able to go to or not able to attend. So we didn't get a lot of information. It's kind of like the focus has been a little shifted, and I feel like this does impact our particular area as a neighborhood off of Pleasant Street. So just like some continued communication and consideration for the people that are on Sunrise Ave, Cheryl, Spanish, Paroline, Trinity, because all that does kind of impact us. And then I just had a question. So in regards to the income-based rents, that's only for a portion of the units, correct?
That's
Not.
right.
And how many out of the 104?
So it was on the slides.
26.
Yeah, I couldn't count it up quick enough.
26.
14 at the 80%,
Okay.
and then 6 each at the 60 and the 50%.
Okay, and so is there any wiggle room for there to be more? I only ask because I'm a social worker, so I'm well aware of the housing crisis. And market-based rent is very difficult for a lot of people to afford. So that's kind of, I know you have to do a percentage, but is there any wiggle room for that to change in regards to how many?
So there could have been. What we decided, instead of adding more units, I think at 80% AMI, is that the board wanted to actually be able to support other income levels. So the 50 and the 60% AMI units that are featured in these developments wouldn't be in a typical development. So it's all trade-offs. We could have added more 80%, but then people at lower income levels wouldn't have been able to afford even them. So, the 50 and 60% AMIs that are being proposed with this development are the only 50 and 60% AMI units in all of Grafton.
Okay.
So
Majority of them are at the 80%?
yes. Well, so
When you're talking about the other, like the
so
housing?
of the whole development, 25% are affordable.
Yeah.
Of that 25%, 10% of the, 15% of the overall development is at 80% AMI. 5% is at 60 and 5% at 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My math's right. So,
Probably better than mine.
so it's all trade-offs. We could have added more at 80%, but I think we felt it was more important to try to get to those different income levels to support different types of families.
And is that something that could ever change if it gets approved and goes to the next level? Because if we're talking about affordable housing, like, is that something that can be further addressed?
Absolutely. So I think that is something that we'll have continuing discussions within the Affordable Housing Trust, the Planning Department, ZBA. This is kind of our first, in a while, it's our first go through of this whole LIP process where we're actually partnering with the developer as opposed to them just coming in. Traditionally, if we're not in safe harbor, they would just come in, they would build in, all the units would be at 80%, and we wouldn't have any negotiating power.
Okay.
Now that we're in safe harbor, we can do things like this, which is a good reason to stay in safe harbor. But yeah, going forward, I think, well, at least as far as I'm concerned, I would like to see some 50 and 60%. We've been having some early discussions on another property of potentially 30% AMI for frail elder population, because that's another underserved need in Grafton. So, yeah, those discussions will be ongoing, as we move forward. So.
And if this goes to the next part, at what point can residents participate again? Because we don't get a lot of notice, like I said, in our particular
So
neighborhood.
public hearings get posted in the newspaper and
Okay.
things like that. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you for your time.
No problem. All right. So what does the board want to do tonight? Are they prepared to?
Can I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I know it's been long. So under 40B, how many units would be in this development? Is that a question that can be answered?
You mean if it wasn't a LIP?
If it wasn't a LIP.
Right. Is it the same number or higher, lower?
Much higher.
as opposed to a LIP?
Could you just come up to the mic, please?
Oh, sorry.
And you might not be able to tell me an exact number, and that's perfectly fine, just to give me a sense.
Logan Huffman with Eastland Partners. A 40B versus basically it's the negotiation. I mean, a developer could come in and propose 300.
And then it would just go to planning and ZBA and it would be up to
Well,
them to-
if they did a
Would
regular
300
40B, yeah, you could
fall in this
propose-
part? You could build 300 in this parcel?
Potentially. I mean, I think it would.
Under our current zoning, you think?
Well, under the 40B
The
regulations.
40B, correct? Okay.
I mean, 40B was created back in the mid-60s.
Sure.
For the sole reason that the way local zoning and local town governments are, set up, it's a lot of the same. It has been, forever. And what we see, there's no way to build of housing other than, acre lots, half-acre lots in the suburbs and things like that. And the world's changing.
But so to get, let's say 300, because you threw that out there, you would have to go up higher.
You
Would there
would.
be some, do we have any zoning relative to
So
that?
I think
We
we'd
do,
be
right?
talking about something like Snow Road.
Right.
So if you look at the Snow Road lip develop proposal that we had before us a little while ago, the site was a little bit bigger. I think they were building on 8 or 10 acres, but they
Right.
were proposing 308 units.
Over 4 stories.
They were 4 stories, and
And then under the 40B, what percent would be affordable?
The statute reads for 40B that a minimum of 25%
25, same, okay.
has to be affordable.
And that would be at the 80%? Because you wouldn't have to do anything less if you didn't want to.
You don't have to do,
Right.
there's minimums set up.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
And just to clarify on the chief, I believe he does have, well, he told me that he's concerns with these big numbers coming in.
Okay, I mean, in the meetings he's had with FinCom, I know he's had concerns about where we were, but seemed agreeable to the increases that we proposed of adding at least one officer per year for I think the next 5 years.
So I think
No, just relative to the numbers of
yeah.
I wish he would
but
share
that's
that
fine.
with the whole board, because this keeps happening where one member gets chief information and then we're all surprised by it. So if he could just.
I just
send
happened to have
us
a
the-
meeting with him
yeah.
last week, so.
So I think another relevant point is that the municipal impact analysis that was done by Eastland included public safety, which I think they included around $100,000. So if you factor that into the budget, we're still tax positive with these developments, but that includes $100,000 to bring in an officer to the police department specifically for these 2 developments, if that's what we wanted to do. So that was kind of included in their analysis. So we would have the budget.
I
for it.
just brought it up because he said no, so just to clarify, that's all. Okay, that's all for me, thanks.
Okay, so if is there any more discussion? Andy, Anne Marie, or Matt?
I feel like we should also point out that while we have overlays and whatnot that show where some of these projects may be ideal in town or quote unquote ideal where people would like them, that again, we can't force people to buy up certain properties or, businesses, what have you, and say you're going to put something here, you're going to put something there. So many of these things are dependent upon private sales over which we just have no control. So, you got to kind of take what you can get. It's not, we can't dictate you're going to put this here and you're going to put that there. It's.
I'm not
private
sure I
market.
totally agree with that. So,
Me neither.
and from this standpoint, we can encourage developers
Right.
by creating inclusive zoning in parts of town, which will actually improve the land values for those people that own land in those parts of town, and allow those developers to go through the planning process instead of ZBA to build by right. The difficulty is with that is that there just aren't a lot of places, there aren't a lot of areas in town that I think, those type of zoning changes go to town meeting, and they're difficult to pass. So, and there just aren't a lot of those main corridors that you could create that type of inclusive zoning. But I would propose that as a potential strategy to stay in safe harbor, that we have planning consider those type of inclusive zoning areas to bring to town meeting so that we can allow that development by right. And we can have an influence there.
Okay. Well, if nobody has anything else to say, I can take a motion on whether or not to endorse the LIP project.
I move the board vote to endorse the lit project for 59 Pleasant Street.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, declare the motion carried. All right, so that covers those two agenda items, and we are on to select board reports. Does anybody have anything they want to discuss? Well, last week I attended the fire chief pinning ceremony, and that was wonderful, and I'm sure Evan will cover that in more detail. But it was really nice to be a part of that process. And yesterday I was a part of the 4th of July parade, which was also phenomenal. I couldn't believe how many people turned out to participate and turned out to watch. So that was a really great thing to see revived back in Grafton again. All right,
Thank you.
and we can move on to the TA report.
Sure. Getting pretty short because we've had holiday weekend and whatnot. I just wanted to talk about briefly the Grafton Day at the Woo Sox. I heard that the turnout was pretty good, and we were able to honor Jim Gallagher as the hometown hero. So Jim got to go out with his son Kevin and throw out the first pitch, which is really cool, and happy that he got to have that experience. As you know, Jim's on a lot of our boards, and he's a fixture here in Grafton and also a Vietnam veteran. So kudos to Jim and thank him for all that he's done for Grafton. I wanted to point out 2 retirements that we just had at the Grafton Public Library. Donna, who had been there for 22 years, has just retired. I believe last day was July 1. And same with Susan, who was there for 19 years. So thank them for their service and enjoy retirement. I did not make it out to the 4th of July parade. I heard that the turnout was fantastic. I saw a lot of great pictures online. I did talk to the chief on the 4th, and he sent me a message just saying that everything went really smoothly and was happy with the way that it went. So I'd like to, kudos to Justin Stone, Bob DeToma, and everybody else that volunteered for that event. Seemed like it really came together there. Really nice. And I was gonna see if we could reach out to the dog mayor so that I know what to do with the budget and public safety and whatnot. We should probably get him in here.
A lot more milk bones.
A lot more milk
Yeah.
bones.
Yeah.
Okay. That was awful. And then lastly, Colleen already covered it, but we had the Chiefs pinning ceremony, and it was a good night. Really well attended. All the men and women of the fire department seemed to be genuinely pleased. Everyone had that kind of upbeat attitude, and it was just well done. I know Ray did the emceeing of it. Colleen, you spoke. I think everybody did a great job, and it was really just a nice event. Although if you wanted to see any more pictures of that, we have them over on our Facebook page. That's it.
Very nice. All right, does anybody have anything in correspondence they want to discuss? Okay, we can move on to resignations. We have Eric Swenson from the EDC.
Yep, I move the board vote to acknowledge a resignation of Eric Swenson from the Economic Development Commission.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion carried. All right, and now we are on to public comment. Do we have anybody in Zoom or in person that is here for public comment?
No hands on Zoom.
Okay, great. And we do have a couple meeting minutes to approve tonight.
Yes. I move the board vote to approve the meeting minutes for May 10th, May 31st, June 7th, June 14th, and June 21st.
Ooh, some catch up. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none.
Sorry,
Oops,
question.
Yes.
Are they available, or do we get them, or we just go to the site?
They're in the packet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't get to that far. Thank you.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any more discussion? Nope. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Declare the motion carried. And we do not have a reason to go into an executive session, so we can adjourn the meeting.
I make a motion. We adjourn.
So, second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Declare the motion carried. Good night, everyone.